So I wanted to, shout out to CaneSport. They had a nice article here, but I want to talk about expanding the board. A guy that's very, very fun to watch by the name of Viliami Moala.
I think he goes by Ami.
Ami? How do you say that? Like, give us the pronunciation.
Ami Moala.
Ami Moala. Kind of a crazy story. He's traveled around the country, really. He's been to Arizona, been to Utah, been to Eugene, Oregon, Willamette, which my dad's from Oregon, and he has a T-shirt that says, "It's Willamette, damn it," because people say Willamette. It's actually Willamette. So he was at Willamette High School in Eugene, was committed to Oregon, which made sense, obviously. Decommitted there. And the story from Oregon is he was like someone they wanted. It was not a situation where Oregon didn't want the player. There's rumors that his dad is stuck outside the country. I believe his family's from Tonga, and they can't get him into the country. So other schools, some rumors like North Carolina's Bill Belichick and Lombardi, these guys are trying to get him into the country from Tonga, calling in favors, I guess, with the big man. But we'll see how that one goes. But this was a guy that Oregon wanted that decommitted, and he said right away, this Moala quote to CaneSport, Miami coach Mario Cristobal reached out to my agent, who happens to be Tua Tagovailoa's father, told him the Hurricanes wanted him really bad, and then reached out to the personnel guys. A lot of guys are on vacation right now as far as assistant coaches, but reached out to personnel guys, spoke to all three. Mario's never on vacation, so he's talking to him, and they're trying to get him on a visit here in the fall. So interesting mix of players. Again, I think Cal's there, BYU, Florida, but I think the school that has some buzz is North Carolina. But if this thing goes longer, I think Miami's got a chance. You have a big Samoan presence on staff with Coach Keke, and of course you have the Mauanoa, you have SJ Alafatuli. You got some guys here to sell.
Yeah, this is what you're looking for, right? I mean, this is what they're missing. He's not a 5-star, but I think you see the size and athleticism and strength really that look at this. This is great. No, I'm not very hopeful based on the recent track record. I'm not going to lie to you, D, but yeah, this would be a nice one.
Yeah, I like the power this guy plays with. I watched some of his camp stuff. Really, the only guy that blocked him was Ryan Moret, your guy from Southridge who ended up going to Ole Miss. I wonder if that one, we'll look back and say it was a miss. I hope it's not, but he looked good in those highlights. Otherwise,
I'll say this: he had 2 years to commit to Miami and didn't pull the trigger, so he had his opportunity.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's what I've gotten. It's not like they didn't want him. So
the profile here with Moala, power, right? Power profile, straight line, kind of upright, just really no frills. He has twitch and burst, but I don't know if he's like a fluid athlete like a Lamar Brown. I think this guy is straight up go forward, pop you. Just a very physical player who I'm trying to find out his where he's from. I think he's from, like I said, from Tonga originally. So we'll see on Ami Moala. But listen, you have made an effort to land Samoan players. Polynesian players. And this guy right here is somebody who has a need position. Obviously, he plays with the physicality that you like. Pull up another highlight here. Look at this guy, man. This guy looks the part. I'll tell you that. Just in terms of what you want. You see guys like this in the NFL all the time. All right, here we go. Let's see him here. Look at this dude. Look at the power. Look at the guy just looks mean. But you see straight ahead, right? Not a fat guy. Powerful build, but just right there, man. Not a lot of dancing. He is going straight at you and straight at the quarterback. Just come from descendants of warriors. It's in my blood to be a baller on the field. Yeah, that's sign me up. Yeah, you just see these guys always getting it drafted.
Power
somewhere.
in his hands, man. When he extends that arm, it's over.
Yeah, man. I think that's, if you're talking about expanding the board, this is where I like it getting expanded. Guys like this. Also had an offer to a kid from Mobile, Alabama we talked about yesterday. So the Southeast, Polynesian, I mean, this is really the bread and butter for defensive linemen, defensive tackles. So I think you're doing the right things. The first choice is obviously to win the battles for the Lamar Browns of the world. And if you don't do that, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's not a loss, but you got to just do what you can. So if you lose those battles, you move on, you expand the board, you call guys like this, as Mario's doing, obviously on vacation, and then you develop like crazy when it comes to Armando Blunt, Justin Scott, the guys, Dante Simpson, the guys that you need to turn into pros so that you can go ahead and, make that the selling point for the next generation with Moala of Tongan descent. Obviously still Polynesian. There is a selling point with the Samoan success you've had with Samoans, with Penei Sewell, with Francis Malinoa. So that does translate there. And yeah, I think you brought in Coach Misapeka. You've done some things to get this pipeline going. Right now, I don't think we have anybody on the radar Polynesian. So this to me makes a lot of sense. It's worth fighting for with North Carolina. Who knows what North Carolina is up to? But I think this is a guy that makes sense there to be a brawler on the interior.
Yep. Agreed. Bagging up says DT, linebacker, wide receiver, safety, all lacking. I think we're all in agreement on that right now. Although wide receiver, you land Tristan Keys, all is forgiven there. Safety, that's big one. Big one's coming up here with Blake Stewart and Tyreek Green, and then DT. We've been discussing at linebacker. We'll see. I know they're pretty happy with what they have in the class right now with JJ Edwards and Jordan Campbell. By the way, I heard that JJ Edwards was put onto the staff by Jaden Wilkerson, actually. So Jaden Wilkerson brought him down basically to his visit, or I don't know if he was on campus before his official visit, but he alerted the staff of JJ Edwards. So that's a cool.
I like that. Yeah, keeping that Orlando tie. But going back to Moala before we get off him, 6'3", 340, high 3-star player. So you look at the high school, you say, I thought he's from Utah. I thought he's from Arizona. I thought he's from Eugene, Oregon. Now at Alabaster, Alabama, Thompson High School, I believe in P, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure Coach Duasso probably knows because he's tight with this guy. I think Tua's dad is in Alabaster, Alabama. So he might be moving closer to his agent, who's Tua's dad. I don't think Tua's dad lives in Florida, or at least he doesn't. I think he's permanently in Alabama, and then maybe he comes to Florida. So that move to Alabama, which seems of all the moves, Arizona, Utah, Oregon kind of makes sense. Alabama's a weird one. But I think that's because his agent, Tua's dad, Tua's Samoan, not Tongan, but that's where he's based. So I think you'll see all these connections play out. Obviously, Tua, the son is here. So this is something that it does make a lot of sense. Look at the report from Greg Biggins. Dominant two-way player who's getting looked eagerly as nose guard, as a center offensive guard. I think for us, defensive line. Offensive line, he's road grader, very physical, punishing run blocker, plays with a mean streak and has just the right amount of nastiness you want to see in the trenches, good pass blocker as well, light on his feet. And I agree with this breakdown here on defense. More of a straight line bull rusher, but shows good hands and a quick first step. True nose who can handle double teams, stuff the run, and win one-on-one matchups with his strength and toughness. Projects as a high power 4 player.
How is he a 3-star?
It's a good question. I can tell you, Oregon wanted him. I was reading through all the Oregon boards, reading the mock.
And FSU wants him too.
Yeah.
Not that means much for that, but
yeah. Yeah, exactly. They did get a couple. They got a couple poly kids. They got
Sport Mark says this kid isn't coming to Miami. I tend to agree, just to put it out there. But
well, I don't know. I mean, look, Mario called him on vacation.
Mario calls everyone on vacation.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a need. We recruit poly kids pretty good. Tua's dad is the connection. I mean, Tua's dad, I don't have any reason to think he's going to steer maybe to Alabama, but I don't think Alabama's been in the mix. Is Tua's dad more likely to steer him to Belichick than to Mario? I don't think there's too much of a difference there. Obviously, the son is here. I'm sure the dad's here all the time. Someone pointed this out in the comment. 26 says, tell him to bring Seaborn too. So what he's referencing, and I'll pull it up here, is
the QB.
Trent Seaborn, 2027 quarterback who goes to the same high school, Alabaster, Alabama. And I believe he's kind of shaping up to be Miami's top target, or at least one of Miami's top targets at quarterback in the next year's class, the 27 class. Number 16 quarterback in the country, 4-star player. Look at his visit history. I didn't show it, but he visited Miami, I want to say twice, unofficially. So that's a factor as well, is that this guy's visited Miami twice. Miami's made a big push for Trent Seaborn. So we'll see where that one goes. But I can see that happening. You got Tyson Bacon, who's a quick guy. Anthony Kennedy, who's a bigger guy, but more of kind of like a body type project, where 4-star, but more of a upside play. Whereas this guy is just a pure, what you're going to get, straight ahead kind of bully. I think he fits in with those three. And look, those three is not a 5-star haul of Lamar Brown or James Johnson and those kind of guys. But, I think that's a pretty good nucleus of defensive tackles that you're not taking a huge step back at the position, which is what you're trying to avoid. You're not taking that huge step forward where you're trotting out first rounders like Georgia was a couple of years ago, at least not on paper, which is what you really want to be Miami. Miami's kind of known for their defensive tackles historically, but at least you're not taking a step back. So I wouldn't be feeling great about defensive tackle if you get this guy and that's your class, but I think it's better than what it could be. So this was an interesting name for me.
Yeah, I think it would be a great get, but let's see.
Lamar Brown commits at, it says 4 hours. So what time is it? 9? Yeah, he gives that 1:30 maybe, something like that. 1:15. I think 1:15 is when he commits. Well, I might go live for that if I'm here, just for the fun of it. We'll see where that goes.
I want to get to this comment real quick because I think it kind of ties up my thoughts on what I was saying about just there isn't a recent track record with these D-line coaches at Miami in terms of producing guys. And Storm Warning says a guy like Justin Scott has to develop and be a number one pick. I don't know if he has to be the number one overall pick. So does Armando Blunt. Then it will become easier for us to get blue chip defensive tackles because we're killing it at defensive end. I agree with this statement, right? I think I would like to see more production out of the defensive ends, but they're recruiting it at a high level. And at D tackle, that's what it comes down to. If Justin Scott, I'm not saying it's going to have an impact on this class. I don't know that you'll flip. You could flip a James Johnson, but I don't know that it will happen based on, oh, wow, Justin Scott had a great year. I think it's more for next year's class, right? The guys that they're building relationships with that they can point to and say, hey, we already have this great relationship with you. Look what we're doing with Justin Scott, Armando Blunt, even a David Blay, right? He's got a chance to be a decently high draft pick, top 3-4 round guy with a chance to improve, right? So I think this season, because if you don't up your production at that D-line spot from last year, completely new scheme, some new personnel there, but you didn't add a whole lot in the portal outside of Blay. Right. So you're pretty much running it back with the same crew of guys. They feel confident in that group. But if you don't see a big step, it's going to be very hard again next cycle. I'm just going to say it like that.
Yeah, but look, this is what you need. You need Justin Scott to develop. You need those guys. Like, that needs to happen. You won those battles. Now you gotta produce with those guys. It's sink or swim, but I think it's where I want to be. I want to be investing, even in Artavius Jones as a redshirt freshman, getting rotation snaps. That's where I want us to be. We got to get that going.
And look, it is about relationships, as online transactions says. It's more about relationships, but there's a lot of coaches with great relationships with top recruits across the country. This isn't. This is a tough decision for kids to make. They can have a great relationship with 2 or 3 coaches, and then you're going to have to go down to something else. All right, NIL package. NIL package is the same. So what do we go to next? How do I feel? Do I feel comfortable going to school here? Is it, can my parents get here easily? Yep, check that off. So what are we going to go down to? All right, there's always going to be that factor that changes it. Every recruit's different. And for a lot of them, it's this stuff. It's what's your track record with draft picks, because a lot of the other stuff is pretty even.
Couldn't agree more. Some more comments here I want to just get to on Moala. Timothy Frederick saying, this is why Miami's fan base thinks they're getting everybody. Coach makes one phone call and they're in the thick of the recruitment. He didn't move for Miami. I mean, I don't think he moved for Alabama. From what I understand, reading the Oregon boards, and again, this is a new name for me, so I don't know this to be a fact. A lot of coaches are on vacation, so I haven't gotten the full story here. But from what I can see from Oregon's side, Oregon wanted to keep him. He decommitted. His dad is trying to get back into the country. I'm assuming he's in Tonga. I don't know, but he's not in the country. This is what Oregon's saying from their mods. And North Carolina potentially is promising they'll get his dad into the country. They're working that one. At the same time, his agent, who's to his dad, appears to live in Alabama, or at least has connections there. So I think the move to Alabama, from what I could see, is more about the agent than like he's going to University of Alabama. I haven't really seen any Alabama buzz with Moala. It's more a North Carolina buzz at the moment, with Miami trying to make a move in. And just the reason I think that's significant is because the head coach is involved. Miami is very purposeful about getting Polynesian players. That's why, one of the big reasons why Coach Misa Pekka was brought in to the recruiting department. Mario, you know how he gets down with that. We were clearly expanding the board at defensive tackle with some of these misses. So there's money left over. There's need. Mario's kind of going to lock in on some of these guys that he likes. Clearly likes this guy. He reached out to him quick. So all those things, when you put them in order, leads me to believe we're going to be in the mix here. I could be wrong, but I think that's right.
Two-Tone says Moten could really be the one to kick off that success, not as a first rounder, but getting drafted potentially. Yeah, I think he's got the size and athletic ability to be a big riser this year.
Canes Cat Heat 305 saying the Secretary of State is a Southwest alum and a Miami Hurricane alum. He's a Gator fan. I know that. I saw, talking about Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. I saw him when I left the Gator game.
His son plays for UF.
Yeah, his son is a running back for you. I think he scored a touchdown.
He scored a touchdown in the bowl game.
Yeah, he's all Gator. He was at the game, and he was very sad after that humiliating defeat.
I think he went to UM Law School. I think he's a Gator undergrad in UM Law School.
Yeah, but he was definitely upset when he saw the Canes, what they did to the Gators. His whole crew, the Gator fans, was heartbroken, which was, just seeing all the Gator fans upset was one of the high points of the season. You were with us walking out of there. Were you there? You were at that game. Your man Jose Lasso was out there riding the statue of a Florida Gator like a horse, right there, right there in front of all these guys.
I've seen the pictures. I've seen the pictures.
Let's see. All right.
I was gonna say that Canes Cat C305 is asking why we can't get Moala's dad into the country. Listen, when it comes to all this stuff, I don't know that Miami can't make stuff happen like some of these other schools, but I don't know that they're gonna be going and promising it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, ultimately, I think the recruiting pitch is going to be about the fact that, we have good success with Polynesian players. Coach Show's not there. That would have been kind of an effortless type of connection at that position since he plays the same position. But Mario's got a pretty good amount of credibility with the community. You got kids there between Ala Fatuli, you have Mao and Noah. I believe Israel Briggs is actually half Polynesian as well. So I was wrong when I said that we don't have any Polynesian players coming in. I believe Briggs. I've seen him wearing the Ulafala and all that stuff. So, yeah, man, we'll see where that one goes. But I think that's something to keep an eye on for sure.